Aerospace safety is very personal to me. I am a licensed certificate holder for rotorcraft, as well as a Part 107 holder. And in the spirit of full transparency, I am a dues-paying member of your organization. I represent northeastern Pennsylvania, which is approximately 120 miles away from Newark, where we have 5 airports inside of our congressional district. We have Wyoming Valley, Cherry Ridge, Mount Pocono, Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport, as well as Hazleton, where I also had the privilege of visiting the TRACON over the weekend, as well as the Air Traffic Control Tower. And really got to see firsthand. It was the first time I was able to put a face to a voice as to someone I speak to so frequently. And I know safety matters to each of us here, and to the pilots, the flight attendants, the mechanics, air traffic controllers, ground crews, passengers, and their families, who we all represent. Well, I wasn't in Congress last year when the FAA reauthorization was passed. I'm proud to work alongside my colleagues this Congress to advance aviation safety. I'm also very proud to have supported the $12.5 billion funding bump for ATC modernization in H.R. 1, as well as alongside Congressman John Garamendi from California. We're leading a bipartisan letter asking the FAA to reject any proposal to allow single pilot operations in commercial airline operations. I guess my question really surrounds ADS-B, and perhaps maybe with Mr. Robbins and Mr. Pleasance. I'm a helicopter pilot. Oftentimes I fly at relatively lower altitudes, and I had read in your testimony, Mr. Robbins, about the need for broadcasting on all various different types of aircrafts. And I know obviously in controlled airspace, we're more inclined and regulated to do so. But Mr. Pleasance, I'd be really interested to get your perspective on ADS-B in all airspaces. Sometimes northeastern Pennsylvania, predominantly a rural area. Sure, we have in and out, but aircraft comes up relatively quickly, specifically in darker environments, sunset environments. And I actually agree with the concept that we should be more proactive in broadcasting positions, specifically with gliders and rotorcraft, and now with the evolution of unmanned aircraft. I think it's something that we can, at least me personally, I'd be happy to support. So, Mr. Pleasance, I'd be interested to get your perspective from your organization and what you're hearing from your pilots.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's an important one because we all have a vested interest in aerial vehicles not encountering each other in the sky, and I think ADS-B is a critical technology that enables that separation. And you're right, it's not required in all airspace around the country, but increasingly a lot of the lower altitude airspace, whether it's helicopters, aerial ag planes, basically, crop dusters, unmanned aircraft that perhaps are out in these more remote locations, we want those all to avoid each other. So I'm personally, and our organization is a proponent of ADS-B adoption with 2 caveats. One is I think there's an opportunity to make it easier to adopt basically portable ADS-B units. They use these in Europe all the time, and balloons and hang gliders and powered parachutes and so on. There's no electrical system required, but they serve the core purpose of emitting a signal that says, I'm here, and allows other aircraft to see them. The second one is the privacy one I mentioned earlier. Anything we're doing in this country that dissuade people from using that technology, I think is a step backwards. And so we'll continue to advocate for improving the motivation for as many pilots as possible to adopt that technology.
Being from Pennsylvania, I'm really excited to see the outcome of today's state legislator hearings and what actually unfolds behind it. And I also read in your testimony about the privacy concerns amongst pilots, and I've heard it as well too. And there's a very solid campaign right now going around at local FBOs about the infringement there. But I was wondering if there was any more concrete examples that you can point to where a pilot or an aircraft owner received a citation relevant to the ADS-B information that was actually sent back to the FAA, and I'd be really interested to see some of that.
Yes, absolutely. There's a very tangible one with a seaplane pilot up in Connecticut that was doing touch and goes on a river, and somebody called in and reported the aircraft for low flying, but it was, of course, taking off and landing, so that's what you do. As you go up and you come down, and you're typically not very high. And so there was a claim made that this pilot was flying exceedingly low, and the only data that was in support of that was ADS-B data. And as you know, ADS-B data is only so accurate because it operates off of pressure altitude and has to be adjusted for barometric pressure. And so what you see get read by the system may or may not be exactly how high that aircraft is off the ground. So that's a very tangible one where that pilot has currently lost their license and is fighting to get it back. I also get emails almost every week, one just a week ago or so, out in Seattle area, where there's aircraft out there doing perfectly legal safety training, basically turns around a point, and they're getting, the FAA out there, the FSDO office is getting emails from a neighbor who's just not happy with the fact they're doing that, and they're pulling up pictures of that airplane and the N number and the ownership of that airplane every time. And it's not one airplane, there's many that go to do the training there. And so I think it's a further example of how, in this case, the FAA has not gone after the pilot. They're trying to educate the person on the ground, but it's creating a level of a dynamic that's not helpful, let's just say, from both a safety as well as a fairness perspective.
I appreciate that insight and appreciate all the witnesses for being here today. And aeromedical reform will be a continued conversation since I am out of time. And with that, I yield back. Thanks.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Ms. Norton.